Organizing a news article is one of the most important things you'll do as a news writer. So you have to think about a news article differently from an essay or a short story. It's not organized in the same way. There's a very specific format that most articles follow. Now, you do have freedom. This is not required, when you become a journalist. It's not always going to be like this, but there is a kind of basic model that people learn, and I want you to learn this first before you kind of break free of that model. So the basic, most accepted format of a news article is called the inverted pyramid, which is basically just an upside down pyramid. And the idea is that you use this to organize your article by the most important information first. So basically, if we're reporting news, what's the news? Tell us that first, and then give us added context below it. So the idea is most important information presented at the beginning to help grab the reader's attention and interest so that the reader will read more. But it's also kind of there because it helps in the news business to have the most important information first. So if we're putting the article into a newspaper and we need to fit it in, it's easy for us to just cut off the bottom to be able to fit it into the print paper. That's traditionally why it's been structured this way. These are just some diagrams to help you out. This is the simplest one. Basically, a news article is structured with the who, what, when, where, why, and how first, then some key details that kind of expand on the most important information here, and then general information, context, background information at the bottom. A lot of times with essays, students put this stuff up here, and you're going to be tempted to do that, but you don't want to. Here's another kind of explanation of it visually. I won't read these out. You can pause the video and look it over. This one's helpful, and this one's a little bit more detailed. So here are some tips as to how to do this. You want to make sure that the beginning of the article tells us the main news that the article is reporting. So what happened? Sum it up in one paragraph. Then what follows should add detail to the information that was introduced in the lead, the opening paragraph. What's that detail? Information, evidence, details, context, and these three things will appear through direct quotations from people you've interviewed, indirect quotes from people you've interviewed, details from things you've researched and learned, all of that. You don't want to necessarily be chronological when you're telling the story of a news article. It's not going to be this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. The order that something happened isn't necessarily as important as what happened. So you might be covering something very boring, like a meeting or an event, like it could be Founders Day. Let's say something controversial happens at Founders Day. Somebody does something in a senior skit that causes a lot of conversation. You wouldn't necessarily begin the article on Founders Day by telling us what happened first, what happened second, what happened third. It's always the same every year. But if some major controversial thing happened halfway through, you start the article with that because that's the news. That's what people need to learn about if everyone's kind of talking about it and wanting to learn more. Then you get to the other details beyond the controversial thing. So let's quickly look at an example from a classic writer. So this is Stephanie Geyer, who was our news editor and our editor-in-chief a number of years ago. I always use this short, quick article from 2013. It's kind of a simple guide to the inverted pyramid. So let's just read it, and I'll kind of comment, like this is a DVD commentary or something. So it's Queens College implements new security policies after robbery. And the lead is, in response to a campus robbery, the Queens College Public Safety Department has updated its security policies. A guard is now stationed on the path between the track and Queens Hall, where the robbery occurred on February 28th, and the department has increased security vehicle patrols and random ID checks in the area. So this is the key news. This is what students need to know. They're being told that a robbery happened, but more importantly, they're being told that as a result, the security policies are being updated to make things safer. These are what the Updates are vehicle patrols, random ID checks, so students at Townsend Harris should be aware of these things. They should know that there's this new guard um, and when the robbery happened. Now, the next most important information is more information about the robbery itself. The two culprits who threatened a Queens College student at knife point and stole his cell phone, cash, and social security card were arrested by public safety roughly 24 hours after the incident with the help of a surveillance camera. So if this article is being written directly after this event, this would go first. But this article is about the new security policies. So the update in the policies comes first, then the added context about what exactly happened during the robbery. Here's more information about what happened after they were caught. They were charged with criminal trespass, possession of a weapon, and robbery in the second degree. Now we get to an interview where somebody involved will give us more context. The director of Queens College Public Safety, Pedro Pinheiro, said the new policies had already been in the pipeline since Queens College obtained the CUNY School of Law. Although the change in security policies was provoked, he added that the department is always examining the number of officers on duty, security coverages, and allocated posts. Security is not a static entity, said Mr. Pinheiro. It must continuously adapt to an ever-changing environment. So these quotes add the perspective of a key person to the story. They're not as essential as this information, but they're interesting. Now we would go to a less essential person, but still important. Here's the principal of Townsend Harris. Although Principal Anthony Barbetta is satisfied with the new security policies as well as Townsend Harris's relationships or relations with the Queens College Police Department, he adds that part of personal safety lies with the individual and that the policies don't mean we should let our guard down. The reality is that you have to be aware that crime can happen anywhere, he said. The best policy is to always be visible. Junior Tessine Akonda agrees and feels that although the increased security makes students feel safer, the incident should be a lesson for the fact that we should always be aware of not only surroundings, but also ourselves with regard to our actions and belongings. So we end with a student perspective. That's important in a student newspaper, but again, it's not essential. We could cut this out. If we needed to just have this be a really short article, we could probably end with Mr. Pinheiro. But by going back to Townsend Harris and showing us what people in the community think about it, it adds a little bit of, useful information. This is a pretty perfect short article. The inverted pyramid is very strong here. Here's a way that Stephanie could have done it that would have kind of ignored the inverted pyramid and would have made the article lesser as a result. She could have started, when Queens College obtained the CUNY School of Law, the Public Safety Office decided that it was time to update its security policies, given that the increased population might pose a problem. Director of Queens College Public Safety, Pedro Pinheiro, said, security is not a static entity. It must continuously adapt to an ever-changing environment. Little did Mr. Pinheiro know that a robbery on February 28th would force his department to speed up their overhaul of security policies. This is a little bit more like a story, like a narrative, not necessarily a news article. It doesn't tell us what happened. It's kind of trying to set the stage, build up something dramatic. For a long feature article that's kind of trying to be more creative, this might work, but for a short news article, this is kind of unhelpful. You want to just know what happened first. So it might be tempting to write like this, but it's not really the inverted model. Stephanie could have gone on, though these policies have been in place for a number of years, and they include such rules as ... So you might then add the context. What were the old rules that have been updated? It might seem relevant to add that information at the beginning, but the inverted pyramid model would put these all the way at the end. But when two thieves held a student at knife point, it became clear that these policies needed more. And then from there, we would go on to what exactly the new policies are. This is the news. It belongs up here. This is not poorly written. It's fine, but it's not the inverted pyramid model. So you want to look at this and the previous article as examples of things that, they're both okay in terms of, this one is excellent, but this is not bad. But notice the difference between them contrast them, and when you're writing yours, if yours is more like this, you want to make it more like this. Okay? So tomorrow we are going to work on this for homework, see the homework schedule, and there'll be some things for you to fill out. And we'll start working on mastering the inverted pyramid model.